In the next paragraph, we have, if I arrive late to this interview, it will be a disaster. So I contemplate doing something radical. What would happen if I just open the door, get out of the car, and start to walk? I imagine everyone would start shouting at me. I could imagine the look on their faces. So the verb here to arrive is llegar, and we want I arrive. So it would be si llego. And the word for late is tarde. So si llego tarde to this interview would be a esta entrevista. Now it will be, you could say va a ser, okay, it's going to be a disaster, or you could use the verb ser and we have this será. Será means it will be a disaster, so un desastre. Either way will work. And the word for so can be entonces, or let's switch to así que. We should probably have an accent over here. Okay, así que. Now, there is a verb in Spanish to contemplate, contemplar, but I really don't hear it that much. So I prefer to simply say, I think to do something radical. I feel much more natural saying that. So it would be pienso for I think, and then hacer to do, algo radical. We don't even have to change this one because it's just pronunciation. Okay, so si llego tarde a esta entrevista será un desastre. Así que pienso hacer algo radical. Now, what would happen? So, to happen is pasar, okay? And we have a would here. So, maybe we get this ria sound for would. So, this would be pasaría. ¿Qué pasaría? With an accent over the I. ¿Qué pasaría? What would happen? If I just open the door, for the word just, what we'd say is si simplemente, if I simply open the door, that's what they would do. Si simplemente. The verb to open is abrir, so it would be abro, and the door, la puerta. To get out of the car, they would just say go out of the car. So the verb is salir, and from the viewpoint of I, this would be salgo. And again, we saw before how sale de la casa in the last translation. Again, we will repeat this here. So it would be del carro. Salgo del carro and start to walk. So this would be y empezar, followed by a. Remember, this empezar, often we throw in a afterwards, and caminar is the verb to walk. So we can put our little upside down one here, right? ¿Qué pasaría si simplemente abro la puerta, salgo del carro, I go out of the car? Because this would be el, right? El carro, but it gets contracted to del carro. Y empezar a caminar. For I imagine, there is a verb imaginar. But what they would say is more, they would use it in a more reflexive way. I imagine to myself. So let's do the verb here, right? Imaginar is the verb to imagine. So this goes to O, imagino, and we have here me imagino. I imagine to myself that everyone, right? Because it's implied. And we'll use todos again for everyone. We again have the verb to start, empezar, but it's would start. So here we're going into our ria sound. What we have to remember is we have todos. So what we're saying is, to myself, I imagine that everyone, they would start shouting at me. So as always, you start from the verb, okay? And then build the rest from that. So empezar is the verb, and they would, empezarían. Here we get our rían sound for they. This means they would start, empezarían, followed by a, as always. And shouting at me, you could just simplify that to shout at me. They would start to shout at me. So gritarme, gritar is to shout, and gritarme, shout at me. Then we have I could, which is podría, a nice handle. And again, the verb imagine. So the verb is imaginar, but remember that in Spanish they use that reflexively. So what it really would be is I could imagine to myself. Podría imaginarme. Here we have the full verb after the handle, just tagging on whatever pronoun we need. So podría imaginarme, I could imagine to myself. Now the look on their faces, they don't have this expression in Spanish. What they would simply say is I could imagine their faces. So more simple, sus caras. Cara is face, so sus caras, their faces. So now what we have is si llego tarde a esta entrevista, será un desastre, or va a ser un desastre. Así que pienso hacer algo radical. ¿Qué pasaría si simplemente abro la puerta, salgo del carro y empezar a caminar? Me imagino que todos empezarían a gritarme. Podría imaginarme sus caras.